we used to have, I don't know, 70% of the properties people would bring us to review were bad properties, and they just didn't know. And like we had to tell them, like, listen, this is landlocked, this is 80% wet. We don't have those deals come to us anymore.
There's a line, and if it crosses that line, we won't buy it. Maybe it's 50% wetlands, 50% FEMA. Something's 100% wet, we're not going to buy it. If something's landlocked, we're not going to buy a landlocked property. Some people like that strategy. I hate that strategy. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today's topic, Ron and I are talking about taking $1,000 and making it into $100,000 using these data techniques. And what I mean by it is getting more niche with your list, getting more precise with your marketing. And what happens from there, Ron? You save marketing money, you save time on the phone, your efficiency just goes up with this. So don't even look at like, oh, I'm saving money on the data side with these data techniques. Look at the whole funnel. What happens when you come in? You're getting phone calls, you're analyzing land, all that time you're training employees. Your employees are on the phone if you have employees. VAs are scrubbing thing. There's so much that goes into it outside of the actual data cost, and I want to get into that kind of on the back end as well. But welcome back to the show, Ron.
Yeah, happy to be here. I like this topic a lot. It can be beneficial for people who are experienced land investors and want to be a little more efficient with their data pooling, who they're targeting, the type of land they're targeting. And it can also be very valuable to someone who's coming into this business with a lower budget. And people are saying like it takes 5,000 mailers to get a deal. It takes 10,000, whatever the number is, 10,000 text messages, because what happens if it takes 10,000 text messages to get a deal? That means you need to pull 10,000 records. We want to try, with this episode, we're going to try to give you strategies, techniques to lower the amount of data you need to pull, lower the targeted list that you have so you can be more efficient with it. So there's less targets per deal, essentially. If you're sending mail, maybe it's 3,000 right now. How do you get that down to 2,000? If it's text, maybe it's 10,000 right now. How do you get that down to 4,000 texts per deal? So your data costs are going to go down from, it's going to literally split in half in some of these situations where we can be more precise with the type of people we're targeting. And not only that, the type of land as well, Dan.
Yeah, but I think the biggest thing is the point of this isn't to save money on data. It's to save it. That's a small percentage.
Everything comes after that. Yeah.
It's everything that comes after that. Think of the money that comes. Data's cheap in general. So you're talking about your time. What's 20 minutes of a phone conversation with you, negotiating with someone that doesn't have land that's not going to sell, or it's bad land, because we're going to talk about multiple things in this episode and get in. But what's 20 minutes of your time? What's your VA scrubbing these lists? What's the mail cost, the text cost, the cold call cost, all of the things that come after. And it's just time, it's efficiency, it's taking your focus from what we can, create a niche list into other things as well. So the goal of this is to just get more precision with what we're targeting to, like Ron said, yield better results, but also it's much, much better business efficiency in general, because now the ratio of that does save you money, but think of the efficiency, and your focus is now on 3,000 pieces of mail or whatever it is with the highly focused instead of 15,000, and everything's just more precise.
It's big. Like, I think people, and I did it literally to start this episode, I think people look too much at like, okay, the dollar amount of this data, it's not a big deal. Okay, it's not a big deal for me to pull 5,000 records versus 3,000. It's not about the data cost. You could definitely pull 5,000 and then filter it down to 3,000 after the fact, after you pull it. But it's about everything that follows, like Dan said. It's about having an answering service. You have an answering service answering all these calls, and you're targeting landlocked properties as well as properties with road frontage. All these landlocked people call your answering service, take 2-3 minutes. That's $5 every time. And it's not a deal that ever really had a chance. Same thing with floodplain, wetlands, not good land. It's such an easy part to start on, Dan. I think that's the number one spot. And that targeting bad land is probably the biggest money coster, not because the data cost, because all the responses you're going to have from these people who want to sell their land, and then you take time reviewing the deal, you take time talking to the seller, your answering service talks to the seller, and then they'll blow you up too, because they want to sell that land. Your offer looks great to them because it's 100% wetlands, and it costs so much more money than just the data alone, obviously.
money coster. Ron just invented a new word.
So it's
But yeah, it's a money pit. Essentially, like it's a money saver that you can avoid. And instead of looking at your data costs, think of the whole picture. And there's a guy in a Facebook group that really did that and was showing how much money he's going to save by coming over to the land portal and removing your landlocked properties, targeting specific amounts of road frontage. He understood the value. He's very analytical, and I respected that because I'm like, okay, this guy sees big picture. He's been in the game a while. He knows the costs that are associated with marketing and bad data. But yeah, so there's two categories we can split this into. You have the typical seller. So what are the odds of the seller closing and what's that look like and them selling their property? And then on the other side, you have the typical land. And we can get precision based on both of those. So some filters that you have that a lot of people use, Ron, are out of county, out of state owners, out of county owners. Those are a couple. Corporate owned, no, maybe they don't like sending to corporate owners. Price of the land, like the assessed values and stuff. A lot of people are using the land value, things like that. And then you have like the mortgage information and the liens and delinquencies and things like that as well. So what does the average seller look like, and kind of work backwards from there? There's tons of filters that you can use to get better mortgage information, delinquency information, really get to that seller that is more likely to sell, Ron.
Yeah, to clarify, like out of county, out of state, that is basically they live in a different county than the land is in, or they live in a different state. So like those are two separate filters on there. But I think like the place to start, Dan, is the land. Like I really strongly believe like if you can get out 20% of your data or not target this stuff based on landlocked. Some of these areas in the country, 40% of the properties are landlocked. And then you have another 20% that are wetlands or majority wetlands. I think that is the place to start. It's not bad targeting specific sellers, but in my opinion, I think the first step, you definitely can. The first step is like, let's analyze this list after I get rid of bad land.
Yeah.
And then the next step is like, okay, do I only want to target people who live outside the state, outside the county, whatever it is? Do I want to go more in the land direction? I want to do a certain amount of road frontage and try to go for subdivides. We're talking about turning $1,000 into $100,000. It's extremely realistic. With this, and we want this episode to be broader than just that specific strategy. But I think just first getting rid of bad land, Dan, where there's no deal that had a chance. Because the thing is, we talk to people, we sell to people in all different financial situations, or buy from people in all different financial situations. We do not buy properties in 100% wetlands.
Because there's
0% of the time. What'd you say?
Yeah, because there's a box, and you can't go outside that box with bad land.
100%.
So that's the good thing about what Ron's talking about is the typical land that we buy. There's a certain point to it where there's a line, and if it crosses that line, we won't buy it. Maybe it's 50% wetlands, 50% FEMA. They're like, if something's 100% wet, we're not going to buy it. If something's landlocked, we're not going to buy landlocked property. Some people like that strategy. I hate that strategy personally, Ron. It's unless it's really close to a road and you can get an easement, it is a tough niche to be in.
There's no seller that fits into a box that's like won't.
There's no
unless it's
seller
like a cemetery or like I've never bought from a cemetery. I've bought from a church. I've bought from trusts. I've bought from LLCs. I've bought from people who live next door to the property.
From millionaires.
Yeah, millionaires, broke people. It's everyone. Like that's.
But there is a more common thing. Maybe it's like a 70-30 that you can start to
100%.
lean into a little and get a little more efficient. But you're also going to lose that other side. The land. I'm glad you said that because I agree with you. The land's the easiest thing to just scrub out. But that being said, the land portal has a lot of good filters, and a lot of people use these advanced filters. And it's shocking how many people filter out the type of owners too, which is fine. Like if you have a good strategy for that, stay with it. But let's talk about the land a little bit more and some common ones people are using, Ron. One of the biggest ones is slope. So you can, if you're in sloped areas, you can remove highly sloped properties with the land portal. So it's where you can, if you don't want over 50% of the land, 70% of the land to be over 15% slope. And they have a PDF report, Ron, on the land portal that talks about the slope and the clusters, and it's AI generated PDF report. We've done other videos on that, correct, Ron?
Yeah, we've done some videos. We'll do some more on that for sure for analyzing the slope of that. You definitely can. Is that up there, Dan, in terms of they can filter out on the export the land?
It's coming back this week.
Okay. So yeah, you'll be able to, like, if you don't want, it makes a ton of sense. Like you're going to literally in some areas of the country be able to take your list from 6,000 records to 3,000 records. And those 3,000 you're eliminating, 99% of them are going to be land that you, and this is not with like going through each one. 99% of them are going to be like land you have no chance of doing a deal with. It's just not the type of land that you want to buy from. And when you can do that on that end, that's when I don't want to worry too much about the seller, Dan. I really don't think that data, I think you're losing potential deals. Like, you want to get, what kind of land are you trying to buy? Are you trying to do subdivides? Are you trying to, like, I want buildable land? That's when I think if you're trying to be as efficient as possible, you don't worry about the sellers at first.
No, that's a good point. And like you said, that's a major money coster if you're not getting rid of those properties, Ron, in highly sloped areas that you can remove 30, 40, 50% of these bad land, of this bad land. But that brings me to like the other filters that are really common. So there's slope, there's FEMA, there's wetlands, there's road frontage. If you guys are targeting subdivides, target, 1,000 feet of road frontage, 1,500 feet, whatever meets your acreage to make it make sense. But that's probably the most powerful one, is the road frontage. And you get instant results. This isn't a scrub or anything like that. This is every data point's already in your data. So you get instant results. You can pull them up on a map. You can pull all your results on a map, make sure it's meeting your filters on the land portal and all of that. But that's where I would start, Ron. I think you can save 30+% on your marketing just from those filters alone, maybe more than that, depending on what areas you're in. And then going from there, Ron, I did want to announce that the Land Portal has a Unlimited Pro plan launching November 19th at 10 a.m. For those people who do a high data, they're pulling tons of data exports every month, and you get a ton of data. It's an Unlimited Pro plan for those high users, and it's only $497 a month. We wanted to make an offer that you and I came together and we're like, what can people not say yes to that are pulling high volumes? And this is it. Our waiting list is full. I mean, it jammed. It is high, and it's growing very, very fast. And I'm glad, because we wanted to make a very aggressive offer that people can't really resist. It's being relaunched Tuesday, November 19th at 10 a.m. Go to thelandportal.com if you guys are interested in that. They have all the information on that site. But where do you want to go from here, Ron? We talked about
let's talk about actual marketing, because like there's money in data, and we're not like, we're saying $1,000 to start. Like, we're not talking like this money's not going towards data, the majority of it. How do we get a list of 1,000, 1,500 extremely targeted properties? And that's what we just talked about going up to this point. Now you have a list of, and you spend $100, $150 on data, not a lot of money on data. And you have this list of extremely targeted properties. Maybe it's just very good properties that you can call, that you can text, whatever it is. Maybe it's road frontage target. I don't have specifics in terms of that. But what you need to do now is marketing. And when we're talking about marketing expenses, like we go from direct mail, which is the most expensive. It's probably the most efficient in terms of your time. So most expensive, most efficient in your time. Then you have texting, which is a little, it's a good amount cheaper, but it takes a lot more time. Then you have cold calling, which is extremely cheap in terms of, if you're doing it yourself, extremely cheap in terms of reaching out to sellers. And it also is, but it is highly time intensive, Dan. And I mean, I think for this, like if you're starting with a minimal budget, you're trying to be efficient, I think texting or cold calling is the way to go. As you scale, like you get that first $100,000 from that, like now you got to add mail. Like you need to have a full marketing approach. But I think texting or cold calling yourself, cold calling is a great way just to grind your way to your first, second deal. And I really like it from a mental aspect too.
Yeah. No, if it's just, you got to build up the knowledge and confidence to be able to hold a conversation. That's the biggest thing. Like when people can send mail and text, you can kind of fake it. You have the templates, you're in the programs, you know what to do, and it kind of works for you. As soon as someone answers the phone, that's the challenge with cold calling. It's like, you're in it. You know what I mean? So there is a little bit more of a learning curve, I think, but it also is going to throw you in there, and you're going to get the most results. And it's a tremendous return on your investment, especially like targeting these big subdivides, 1,000 feet of road frontage, Ron, 1,500 feet, 20 to 50 acres minimum road frontage. You're talking about good six-figure deals. Mm-hmm. And cold calling, like your time on your money, like that's, I'm very for cold calling. There's a lot of agencies out there that do it as well. Or you can, hire a cold caller yourself and train your cold callers. You can go either route, but in general, cold calling's great.
It just works. Like every industry, like we do some stuff for land investing online with cold calling. We do stuff to get deals with cold. Like there's just it works. Like getting on the phone with people works, and that should be your goal from direct mail or from texting. Again, is to have conversations on the phone. That's how you close deals, in person or on the phone, typically. So I mean, whatever strategy you use, getting them on the phone to close the deal and make sure it makes sense. But you have that targeted list. If you're trying to be as efficient money wise as possible, cold calling's the answer. If you're trying to be as efficient time-wise as possible, direct mail is probably going to be the answer. Texting is somewhere in between on both ends. It is pretty time intensive though, Dan. I think texting though, if you really improve your systems, I think it does not have to be that time intensive on the front end, to be 100% honest with you though, or on the back end. Once you get everything set up,
You just need your systems, yeah.
yeah, systems, a VA, and like you can be pretty efficient with it as far as getting out, I don't know, 500 texts a day, something like that, where your VA is responding to them. Maybe you have 2, 3, 5 leads you need to talk to a day that showed really good interest, and then you just kind of scale up from there.
Yeah, and just looking at the math, so I was just doing some filters playing around on the land portal, and I got rid of wet properties, and I got rid of land, and I put 100 feet of road frontage just because I don't even want I don't want 50 feet properties back necessarily just for the sake of this. I'm just going to target 125 feet and up of road frontage, and I had 1,500 results. Now I have 800, Ron.
Wow.
And I'm just thinking, because I wanted to talk about the pipeline and how this works and where this actually saves money. So you have 800 records, so you're saving 700. So that's going to be, so you're saving 700 data points. So that's going to be and those were wet, super sloped, landlocked properties, bad land that you're not going to buy.
Yep.
Take those, throw them in the trash bin. Those are gone. You're not pulling them. They're not coming with your list. You're not paying on them, anything like that. Now you have 700 that you saved, and 700 times, say your mail is 420. So that could be 420 if you're sending mail. If you're not sending mail and cold calling, that saves you. Cold calling is the most expensive, the most savings you'll have here, because that saves your cold callers or yourself. Texting too, though, that saves 700 contact points. That's 700 divided by 1,500, and that's 46% of your time and money that you're contacting these people. It's saving you that time and money, and just time in general, guys. That's like 45% of my list was narrowed down from completely wet properties that were over 75% wet, sloped properties, or landlocked. You're not going to buy those. You're saving so much time and money on that. So I just wanted to do a quick math. If you're sending mail, that's $400 right there, and that math makes sense. But other than just the money of marketing and mail, think of the time and just the efficiency of your business. Instead of looking and pulling up these properties all the time and looking and having to call them back, hey, your property's underwater, so we're not going to be able to buy these. You get to avoid all that, and you're just hyper focused now.
Yeah, we've had the land portal has been effective like this for 8-9 months, as far as like with these different data points. And Dan and I talk about it all the time. We do members only calls on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern. And we just have talked about, like, there's not bad properties that we used to have. I don't know, 70% of the properties people would bring us to review were bad properties, and they just didn't know.
Well, the vacant land AI too.
Yeah, they didn't know that early on in their career, like, okay, this property doesn't make sense. Their idea was like, okay, I got a purchase agreement. Now let me take this to Dan and Ron, see what they think. And then like we had to tell them, like, listen, this is landlocked. This is 80% wet. We don't have those deals come to us anymore. So there's a little lower volume deals, but every deal we have is like good land. Like, you just got to find a way to make the deal happen. Maybe it's a double close. Maybe it's buying and reselling. Maybe it's a subdivide. So many different options there. But the ability to not have to, the time that waste from them getting excited, them getting a phone call or a text, whatever it is, bad property, they review it. They don't know yet. They're not good. Let's just say you're not good enough to review and know this a bad property right now, and then you bring it to a deal review, and then like there's just so much time, energy that went into that deal, mental energy. Like, you're getting excited about something that never really had a chance. Yeah. And it's just that switch has been flipped in the last 6-7 months since these filters and everything like this have been added. You can target 99% really good land.
Yeah, and
maybe 100% after slope.
Was removing the structures too. Like, that was a big part of the shift, because the AI scans, using numerous different sources, satellites, county. It's machine learning that understands if there's a property on it by now, by scanning it and looking at it and looking at different points. And that's 99.9% accurate. It's insane how accurate that is. And when you and I first started land flipping, Ron, we were using data tree. And we were targeting areas in Kentucky that would have 20 to 30% of these properties would have something on it.
We just
No
bit the
joke.
bullet too.
Alabama,
Yeah.
all these
Landlocked.
so many, and then we're sending mail and they're calling us. We built the software that we wanted to really make work for us when we first started. We're like, how do we make the best product that we want? And that's what we work from. I mean, that's how this business was made. And then we just take community engagement and community feedback. And you guys have given us such good feedback. It gives us direction. This is the easiest job ever that we have. We just listen to the community and implement what we wanted, and now listen to the community and implement what they wanted. So I think it's worked out really well because it's contributed to our growth, our fast growth, Ron. And I'm just excited for this new plan for those high export users.
Yeah, I'll never forget like pulling data in Kentucky, like when we first started this stuff, and I was doing spot checks of it, but it's like this is gonna take me hours to go through spot check, pull off things with structures. We didn't have a VA at that point, 100%. But we bit the bullet because we were getting deals with them, and now like let's say Kentucky has some really small counties, so there's not a ton of data in them. So you get 1,600 data points, and then like you look through like 40% have structures on, no doubt. And the reason being is because these data sources, a lot of the data sources uses county provided data or like whatever the county says. So if there's $0 assessed improvement value, then it is vacant and their data just is not up to date and it's not quality. A lot of these people put illegal structures on their property in more rural areas that aren't approved by the county. So the county has no clue, but the AI feature on the land portal in particular catches those structures on properties. It doesn't matter what the county says about it.
We're not listening to the county because we know the county's wrong. We do take it, we do show the data, and you can still filter by that data as well, but we're not using it. And that's why we combine multiple data. We have multiple data aggregators we work with. We have over 5 now, different data aggregators. So we work with the best of the best. And then where some of these data aggregators are weak, very weak, we'll take the other data aggregators and combine them together. And then we also aggregate our own data as well. We have over 10 to 15, I think now actually, of our own data points that are 100% accurate nationwide, just about, which is really, really cool. And that's really just from the feedback of seeing where there's loopholes and knowing the data so well from the users and all the feedback. But traditionally, Ron, people were pooling vacant land by improvement value, land use, or building square feet, or the combination of 3 of them. We know from that doesn't work well. It doesn't work well at all. It's very bad. And you'll go into these counties and you'll zoom in and you'll see on our software too, it'll say 0 square feet. And that's because the county's not providing it for those areas. And there's tons of examples. Just go to any county in Kentucky and zoom around. So just want to throw that out there, Ron. I don't have too much to add. Do you have any last comments?
No, I think just kind of being efficient with it is important. Thinking about like what you want to target and then making adjustments. Like everyone's target is going to be a little different, but targeting good land is eliminating targeting bad land is very, very avoidable with the direction of softwares like this. So excited to see where it goes. If you guys are watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button below. Like Dan said earlier, November 19th, there's limited spots for our unlimited pro plan, $497 a month. It's unlimited. You get 20,000 exports per month. It is for land investors who are trying to scale up, trying to grow for sure. Other than that, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining, guys. As always, thank you for joining. Please do us a huge favor and like and subscribe our YouTube channel and share this with a friend. It really means the world to Ron and I, but more importantly, it could help change the life of someone else. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next episode.